Hello, thank you for having me. I wish I could be there in person, but due to obligations, I could not. I'm grateful that I had this opportunity to share a story, a real life event that occurred where I live. My name is Sarah McCoin. I'm a ninth generation living on our family farm in Harriman, Tennessee, which is located less than 2 miles from the 2008 TVA coal ash disaster. The purpose of my communication to you all is to share the horrendous experience that we as a community were exposed to on that day, actually the evening of December 22nd, 2008. And what's really almost hard to believe at this point, it's been 10 years and we've got the same stories going on across the nation. And from what I understand, you all are sitting ducks and possibly the next disaster just waiting to occur. So let me tell you about that experience on December 22nd, 2008. It was late. I worked in Knoxville. It was very, very cold. It was freaky cold for this area. 13 degrees, I think, is what the temperature was, which, like I said, is really odd for our area. However, it kept people off of the streets because it was too cold. And I think that was a blessing in disguise. And right after midnight, there was a rumbling. I thought it was thunder. I didn't know what it was, but then it was rather clear out. Didn't think much of it. I lived at the time by myself in this home, my grandmother's home, and then you would hear emergency vehicles, a lot of emergency vehicles. It went on, and then there were helicopters flying over our farm with spotlights. And at that point, I was convinced there was some criminal on the loose, and I was not going to get out of bed and find out what was going on. I was just going to hunker down, and I'll find out in the morning. Of course, this went on all through the night. Our home is on the farm, kind of off of the street, but it didn't matter with the amount of emergency rescue vehicles that were going by. And at daybreak, I got up about 5:30, turned on the news. They said TVA was announcing this gigantic mudslide. Now, we had had a lot of rain. I'm thinking, mudslide, where could there possibly be a mudslide? And it was blocking the road that I live on, one of the outlets. As I said, it was a circle road. So I hopped in the car just to kind of figure out what was going on. Couldn't get through my normal route. Police were standing there blocking the road. Couldn't see anything. Said, turn around, go the other way. I went the other way. It's a 5-mile circle. And as I pulled up, the area that breached, where it blew, it was a 55-foot high storage of coal ash, wet coal ash. Well, it blew at one corner and it swept like, I don't even know how many football fields, took out telephone poles and trees and structures. And it was a tidal wave. So when the coal ash pushed forward, the tidal wave occurred. There were turtles and fish and all kinds of river life that had been pushed up onto the shore, and then the water came back, but the coal ash, then it was like wet lava all over the place. It was unbelievable, the sight. So I just started taking pictures. I didn't even know what it was. I couldn't figure it out. And I finally was able to move on around to get closer to the coal ash plant, and you could then clearly see that this incident had occurred. Thinking it was contained only to this one area that was once a lake, that's now, there's nothing there but coal ash, thinking it's just there. Well, the further I looked, the more I saw it was covering railroad tracks. It was covering up the soccer field. Had it been during the daytime, kids were always on that soccer field, there would have been a death. And I would imagine more attention would have been drawn to this event had there been a fatality or two, but there wasn't, thankfully. News broadcasters were getting there. A few politicians were showing up. People were literally just walking around in a daze. And so as the reality set in, okay, this is a big, huge situation, TVA was totally unprepared. No clue what to do, how to address the people. There was no action plan. They had an internal action plan if something would have happened internally within the plant, but this was so far off the spectrum, there wasn't even any conversation when the executives of TVA were being interviewed. They had no response. They couldn't respond. It was so baffling. Everybody just was in shock, could not believe the magnitude. And to give you an idea what happened, it was 5.4 million cubic yards that covered 300 acres. And it didn't just merely just like a icing on a cake cover it, it was thick. It was like ashbergs. Think of an iceberg, excuse me, but ash on top with a tree sitting on top of the ash where it had pushed. And within this sludge, we were walking in it. I mean, people were out there with their dogs walking on top of this stuff, just looking at it. People's houses were smashed, trying to, again, get a grip on what was going on. Never occurred to us what was contained in the sludge. It just looked like this gray, gooey mud. Well, TVA initially said that there were no toxins involved. You know, it's just coal ash, it's a mudslide, no big deal. Well, we, as a community, we finally got them focused on, within short order, this is not mud, this is coal ash. And with the assistance of Tennessee Clean Water Network, Earth Justice, and some people who immediately responded, TVA then acknowledged that the byproduct, the stuff that was all over our community, filled up all of our waterways, had arsenic 36 times higher on the coal ash disaster site than any place surrounding. Lead, chromium, manganese, barium, and all of these things cause health problems, cancers, liver problems. A conversation I specifically had with Tom Kilgore, who was the CEO of TVA at the time, how long is it going to take to clean this stuff up? The response was 6 to 8 weeks. We'll have it all cleaned up in 6 to 8 weeks. Well, it was actually like 5 years of cleaning this up. They have recently finished cleaning it up. It was a process, and this is what you all need to recognize. If you have leakage, you have stuff spilling out. We had none. To our knowledge, we had nothing seeping out. But if you have that stuff seeping out, it does contain toxins. You cannot believe what big business is telling you because they're protecting their own interests and their own financial situation. And that's exactly what TVA started to do. TVA started to deny that this was a problem, that we needed to be concerned. Even got our local politicians thinking, well, here, I'll drink some water that's not been treated. You know, this, I'll touch it. I'll let my dog walk on it. You know, it was all of those stories, but they were reality. It was like a really bad movie setting. You just wouldn't have believed it. So from that point of being shocked, we organized somewhat what you all have going on there, except we were ignorant. We're very ignorant. I highly encourage community meetings with educated experts to come in and talk to you, because those are going to be your biggest advocates. If you don't have expert opinions, you just have, you know, your theory that's based on your own knowledge without scientific data to support it, it's going to be difficult as a community to fight for your rights, to get your coal ash that's in your community under control. Again, I told you TVA first denied that it was toxic. You may be hearing some of that. Oh, it's not toxic. But the total cost, it's in the billions. Just to contract to clean up the coal ash was $1.2 billion to a firm called Jacobs Contracting. Is this going to happen in your case if it blows? Depends how much money and how much pressure that organization has. One thing we had going for us is that TVA is a government entity. Most energy companies are not government entities. But I never in my wildest dreams would have believed that this would happen. Is it a bad thing? Yeah, it's a horrible thing to experience. Sadly, my community's forgotten about it. It happened 10 years ago. I mean, there's kids that were just being born that are now in the 3rd grade. Where we are, it's kind of like it was when I was a kid. There's a lot more farmland because those houses are all gone. It's all TVA property. So from a visual standpoint, it is gorgeous. And sometimes I forget that there were 5 years of them, TVA and the contractors, digging all of this muck out of the river. And is it really safe? Don't know. I just don't know. I hope it is. So my story is unique. Sadly, it won't be the last story with these consequences. I really appreciate you all having me, letting me tell the story. Reach out to me if you have any questions or concerns. It's something that I'll never forget, and I really wish you the best. And don't ever give up on your mission, because if you give up, you're going to lose everything that you've gained up to this point. Good luck, and again, thank you.